Hello, Western Heights Church family. Here's your Wednesday Minister Moment. It was a little over a year ago that Cheryl and I both we started this remodeling project on our kitchen and dining area. Now, I had great difficulty in trying to visualize what it was all going to look like. And as a result, as we went through things through the process, this is the first time we'd ever done anything like this. It was difficult for us to take certain steps because we didn't know exactly what to do. We were a bit indecisive, unsure about things. And as with any remodeling project, it took longer than we expected, and it cost more than we expected. That's just how it is when you remodel something in your house. It reminds me of 2 Corinthians chapter 3, where we're told that God is transforming us into the likeness of Jesus. Now, what's interesting about that is that even that transformation or remodeling project, if you want to call it that, is something that often takes longer and costs us a whole lot more than we ever expected. There's a story in Mark chapter 8 of Jesus healing this blind man. Now, this is an unusual story because what happens is that there's people that bring this blind man to Jesus. They ask for Jesus to heal him, and he takes him by the hand and leads him outside of the village. And then he spits on the man's eyes, and he places his hands on his eyes, and then Jesus asks him, "Do you see anything?" And the man opens his eyes and he looks and he says, "I see people, but they look like trees walking around." So Jesus is healing this man, and this is the only time where Jesus didn't heal someone completely on the first try that we know of. So what Jesus does is he puts his hands on his eyes again, and he takes his hands off, and this time the man can see completely. Now, when you look at the commentaries on this, there are a lot of people that just aren't sure exactly what Jesus was doing here, why it took him 2 tries. They don't know exactly what the point is. I can tell you what I think is going on. And when you look at it within the context of the verses prior to this and following this is a situation where Jesus has been also trying to teach his disciples, and the disciples aren't sure. They don't really understand Jesus completely. In fact, a few chapters before this, Jesus had fed 5,000 people. The disciples saw this. And then right before this healing, Jesus has 4,000 people who need to be fed. And when Jesus asked his disciples about what are we going to do about it, the disciples didn't have a clue. They didn't learn anything from the first time. They're in a boat as they leave that spot, and they're confused about something that Jesus is talking about. And Jesus makes a comment to them about, "Are your hearts so hard? I mean, do you still not understand?" And so it's like they have a glimpse of Jesus. They see Jesus on a certain level, but they don't see him completely. Following the story of this man who was healed from his blindness, we find that Peter announces that Jesus is the Messiah. It's like Peter understands who Jesus is, and yet if you read the story completely, what you discover is that Peter's view of what the Messiah should do and look like is different from what Jesus actually does. We're like the disciples. We're like this blind man. We see things partly, but not completely. Just like the blind man, he saw people, they looked like trees. Sometimes we look at other people and we don't have the proper perspective, the proper view of who they are as being created in the image of God. And just like the disciples, our view of Jesus sometimes is a bit skewed. We don't understand really what he's about. But I think it's important for us to remember that God didn't stop with the first part of the healing of the blind man. He continued until he could see completely. He didn't stop with the disciples once he was frustrated with the fact that they just didn't get it. He continued to work on them. It's like the song, the kids' song, "God's Still Working on Me." Do you remember the verse, some of the words? He's still working on me to make me what I need to be. It took him just a week to make the moon and stars, the sun and the earth and Jupiter and Mars. How loving and patient he must be because God's still working on me. And that's what I want us to remember. That wherever we're at, whatever life stage we're at, wherever we're struggling within our own faith, God's still working on you. That he wants you to be able to see completely. He wants you to be able to understand completely. And as we make sure that our hearts are open to him, that they're moldable, that we too can change like the disciples. Because what happens with them eventually is that they change the world. And they are helping other people to see Jesus more clearly as well. May God continue to work in your heart to help you to see like the blind man. To help you to be able to be what God wants you to be. Because he's still working on you. I hope this is a blessing to you and that you have a great day.